Okay, let's start. Um, I think most of you have already joined, and can I just get a clear yes from all of you before we start with the session? I think, as far as I remember, in the previous session, or else we could say yesterday, we had an understanding of the concept of what a reading comprehension is. We also understood the types of questions being asked in a reading comprehension. About that, we also had a look at some of the types of passages and some of the suggestions in order to improve your verbal, right? So we were left with the strategies, I guess, right? Can I please get a yes from all of you before we start? Okay. Let's start with the strategies that were left in the previous session. After after going through all the strategies, we'll be having a look at a simple reading comprehension just to have a good start to it. And after going through that simple reading comprehension, we'll be solving a CAT level passage. Or let's say if you're reading comprehension is something which will be coming in terms with various entrance examinations. So no matter whichever exam you're preparing for, it is going to be useful in all the exams, right? Whether we talk about GMAT, whether we talk about CUET, whether we talk about XAT and MAT, reading comprehension is such a concept which is going to be helpful in various examinations, right? So let's start with this. When we have a look at strategies to crack a reading comprehension, it is rather a process which I'm going to make you understand. So you have to follow a few steps in order to crack the questions of a reading comprehension. And those steps are, the very first thing that we have to do while solving a reading comprehension is we need to understand the context. What do you understand by context? Anyone? What do you mean by this context? When I say that we have to understand the context of a reading comprehension, what do you understand by this word context? Okay, Rishabh, correct. Come on, who else will contribute? Yes, Gautam, correct. Okay. Okay, Japneet. Okay, Akriti. Yes, Ibrahim, correct. So context is, many of you would get confused with the context and the main idea. Yes, Venkateshwari. Many of you might get confused between the context and the main idea. Main idea is basically a part of the context, right? So context is nothing but the main topic around which the passage is revolving. Right, so when I tell you that you have to understand the context of the passage, it is nothing but the main title or the topic around which the passage revolves. So let's say if the passage is on GDP of India, it is nothing but the context of the passage. Now, when I tell you to understand the context, it means you just have to get a basic overview of the passage, not by reading it completely, but by just having a glance at the passage. So let's say if you're sitting in your examination, in any kind of an entrance examination, and if you have a look at a passage which is kept in front of you, all you need to do is you just need to get a glance of a few lines of the passage in just a couple of seconds, right? In just probably 5 or 6 seconds, and you already have come to know what kind of topic is the passage presenting, right? So understanding the context just means getting a glance of the passage and getting comforted with the topic of that particular passage, right? Next, after understanding or after knowing the context of the passage, what you're going to do is you're going to skim for an overall idea of the passage. Now, overall idea is nothing but the main idea or the purpose of the passage. Right. So first of all, we are knowing the context, or first of all, we are knowing the topic around which the passage is revolving. After knowing the context, we are trying to skim for the overall idea. Now, what do you mean by skimming? What is the meaning of skimming? What do you mean when you try to skim something? Anyone? Okay, not going through the questions, Rishabh. Okay, summarizing something. Okay, Samvit. Okay, Japneet, to find. What else? Okay, Ibrahim, skipping some unnecessary words. Yes. Okay, Venkateshwari, analysis. Okay, just briefing through. Okay, Unnati, selecting. So all of you are correct at some point. Skimming basically means to summarize something in just a few lines, to explain a whole passage in just 2 or 3 lines, right? So when we talk about skimming something, all we have to do is we have to ignore the unnecessary or unimportant details, and we have to pick details which are the most important for the passage, right? So let's say if we have a passage of 4 paragraphs, right? If you have a passage of 1, 2, 3, and 4 paragraphs, All you have to do is, because the author might have some or the other idea in each and every single paragraph of the passage, right? Try to understand, no paragraph given to you is useless. Each and every single paragraph might have some or the other small or a big idea in it, right? But all you have to do is you have to pick up the bigger idea or the bigger picture from the paragraphs, right? So after understanding the context, you have to skim all the unimportant details and you have to get the bigger picture out of it, and you have to get an overall picture or the overall idea of the passage. So once you start reading the passage kept in front of you, you have to understand or know the topic or the context. After knowing the topic, you have to get an overall picture or the overall idea of the passage. Now what? After, just a minute. Okay. The third point is, after having an overall idea or after getting the main idea, all you need to do is you have to make an effective note, right? Now, by making a note, I mean, I hope you remember by the from the previous session that I told you that you need to create a map in your head, right? So when I told you about creating a map, I made you understand how you need to remember the most important details of each and every single paragraph in your minds. Right now, most of you might feel that we don't have that kind of a memory that it becomes possible for us to remember every single detail from every paragraph. And it's completely fine, right? Yes, Shabir, I have done this in the previous sessions, but I got a request from a lot of students to repeat this, so hence I'm repeating it. Okay, so again, when I told you about making or creating a map in the mind, I made you understand that it's definitely not possible for a layman to remember each and every important detail in our minds. And hence, creating a map is important. By creating a map, I tell you to remember just the valuable or the most important details from each and every single paragraph, so that it becomes easy for you to attempt the questions. So let's say if you have gotten a question on the basis of a particular paragraph, you at least will be knowing that in order to solve that particular question, you have to go and check out which particular paragraph, because it is you won't have that much time to go through each and every single paragraph to find out an answer. And hence it becomes a bit important for you to understand or remember important details from paragraph, so that you get so that you solve that particular question in the limited time. Clear? I hope you're understanding things. Any questions, any doubts till these three strategies, till these 3 points? Any doubts or any questions till now? Japanese is asking, is effective note making just briefing up each paragraph? No, it does not mean briefing up each paragraph. It just means remembering important details out of that particular paragraph, right? So let's say if you have a paragraph of 4 to 5 lines, just briefing it in 1 or 2 lines won't be of use. You need to understand that out of these 4 to 5 lines, which particular line or how many particular words are important to me or are important for me to remember. Right? Clear? Any doubts? Any questions till now? The fourth strategy is, after you're done with understanding the topic, knowing the topic and knowing the overall idea, also after you're done with remembering each and every important detail from all the paragraphs, the next point is you need to understand what the question requires as an answer. Right? Many a times, a paper setter, what does a paper setter do? Because I know this because I myself have framed a lot of passages. I framed a lot of reading comprehensions. How I confuse my students is I try to play with words in the options. I try to make the options so much confusing that it becomes really difficult for my student to know the correct answer or to choose the correct answer from the options. Now, you need to remember one very, very important point. Yes, Satyaki, this is. Now, I need you to remember a very, very important point, that there might be a situation wherein you'll find some of the exact words in the options which the paper setter has probably copied from the passage, right? To confuse you and to make you believe that that particular option is your correct answer. So let's say, for example, if your passage has 3 words, if the passage has inflation in USA, right? If the passage has these 3 words, inflation in USA, and if the paper setter is trying to trick you by making you believe that a particular option is an answer, and if the paper setter is inputting these 3 words in that particular option, just in order to make you believe that the option is your correct answer, you don't have to get confused. You might encounter such options wherein you'll find the exact words taken from the passage, but it is not necessary for that option to be considered as the correct answer. You must also need to understand the question being asked to you. Is that particular option which you are choosing as an answer is satisfying the question being asked to you? The answer or the option that you're choosing as an answer must satisfy the question being asked. So it is very important for you to understand the question first and then moving on towards the options. Right? And this particular strategy is trying to make you understand the same thing, that understanding the question is very, very important before you move on towards the options. Right? Clear? Any doubts? Any questions? I hope you guys are understanding things. Next point is, so you're done already knowing the context. You're already done knowing the main idea. You are already done with remembering the most important details. You have gone through the question. Now, what comes the next step? After reading the passage, after understanding the question, now the next step is you have to move on to the options. Now, after going through all the options, what has to be the next important step? You have to keep on eliminating the wrong options. You know, back in those school days when we used to solve a reading comprehension, we just used to straight away choose the correct answer. But now choosing the correct answer is going to be a bit difficult for you because the options will look very, 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 very similar to each other. And hence, in order to make the process easier, it is very important for us to eliminate the wrong options first. So let's say you're being given 4 to 5 options depending on the entrance examination. I mean, if you are if you're giving the entrance examination such as GMAT or CUET or probably any other examination, you could be getting 4 to 5 options. But if you're giving such examinations such as XAT or CAT, you could be getting 4 options. So depending on the entrance examinations, you could be getting 4 to 5 options. Now, if you're getting 4 to 5 options in your examination, it is very much possible to at least eliminate 1 or 2 options. There will be some of the options which you'll be eliminating at the very ease by the very first glance, right? You'll be thinking that, okay, these options cannot be my answers and I have to eliminate them. And there is also a strategy which is very important for you to, very important in the elimination process. And I'm going to make you understand that strategy in detail, which is known as the Bain strategy. But after we are done with all these 10 strategies, right? So after going through all the options, you need to eliminate the options which you think are wrong according to the question. After eliminating the wrong options, you're left with probably 2 to 3 correct options, which you think are correct, obviously. After being left with 2 to 3 probable correct options, what you're going to do is you're going to compare those 2 to 3 options with each other and then ending up choosing a correct answer. Right? Now, how are you going to compare those 2 to 3 options with each other? It is very important for you to consider 3 things while this process of comparison starts. Right? First of all, you need to compare those leftover options with each other. So the first point is, just a moment. The first point that you need to remember is you need to compare those leftover options with each other. Right? And while comparing them with each other, you'll definitely come to a certain point wherein you'll start feeling that this option looks confusing. This option over this other option looks a bit confusing, and hence you'll try to eliminate those 1 or 2 options which you'll find confusing. Right? After, if you feel that no, this is not working, I mean comparing these leftover options with each other is just not working, the next step will be you'll start comparing those options with the passage. After comparing those leftover options with the passage, you'll start feeling that there are 1 or 2 options which are just distorted according to the passage, or which are just not true according to the passage. There would be some or the other information included in that particular option or in those particular options which will be just untrue according to the passage, and hence you'll be starting to eliminate those options as well. If this also doesn't work, in the end, you'll compare those options with the question, right? Now, in the end, if you start comparing all those options with the question, you'll definitely end up eliminating the rest of the options and choosing one single option as an answer, because a paper setter can try to confuse you just with these three things, right? Either he will play or he'll start playing with the words. He or she will start putting some unnecessary or unimportant words or wrong words which are not at all given to you in the passage. Or he will show you the options which are true according to the passage, but which are not answering the question. So there might be some or the other thing which according to the passage or according to the question will be wrong. And in the process, through this process, you'll definitely be choosing one single option which will be true according to all these points. Clear? I hope this is pretty much clear to all of you how you need to choose the correct answer after going through the elimination process. You'll be left with a few options wherein you'll try to compare those options with each other. You'll try to compare those options with the passage. And lastly, you'll try to compare those options with a question. And there will be a point wherein you'll be definitely sure of one single option as the correct answer. Clear? Any questions, any doubts till now? If you don't have questions, please post a yes in the chat box so that I can understand if I have to move ahead. Just a yes in the chat box from all of you. Come on. Okay, a big yes. Great, Rahul. Okay, so let's move ahead. Let's move on to the 7th point. Now you're already done with the process. You already know the process through which you have to solve a reading comprehension. You have to know the context, and you have to know the main idea. Then you have to read the whole passage, and you have to understand the question. And then you have to go through the options. You have to start eliminating the options. And then lastly, with the help of the leftover options, you have to choose the correct answer. Now there are 4 points which I need you to remember or keep in mind while solving an RC. And those 4 points are: the first point is reading the questions of the passage first. I also made you understand this point in the previous session, that if at all you come across a descriptive passage or a fact-based passage, in short, if you come across a passage wherein you find a lot of minute details, try to go through the questions first so that you already know which details you have to concentrate more on while reading the particular passage, right? Because obviously it is not important for, it is not possible for us to remember each and every unnecessary detail in our mind. And hence going through the questions makes things a hell lot easier for you to concentrate on the most important details while reading the passage, right? And when I say go through the questions first, I do not mean read each and every question carefully. You do not have to waste time on to reading a question very, very carefully. You just have to go through the questions just in order to know that on which particular detail you have to concentrate more on while reading the passage, right? So this is one point which I need you to remember, that if at all you come across a descriptive passage or a fact-based passage or a passage which has a lot of details in it, just try to go through or just try to have a glance of the questions first. Clear? The next point that I need you to remember is, do not let your prior knowledge of a topic decide your answer for a question. This is Mahima. Okay, Mahima is asking, can we follow this 7th point if we have less time left? Definitely you can, but you also need to remember that if you go through the questions first, it is not necessary for you to attempt some of the questions correctly, because there might be a situation wherein you're getting a passage based on a concept which is not involving any kind of a fact. So if you're not asked any fact-based questions, or if all the questions of that passage are based on inference or assumptions, then it just might not be possible for you to attempt even one question correctly, right? So it depends on passage to passage, it depends on question to question. But you can just hit and try if you just have 2 or 3 minutes left. You can just go through the questions first, and you can just make a try if any of the question is fact-based, and if any of the question is possible for you to attempt in just a few seconds, right? The next point which I need you to remember is, do not let your prior knowledge of a topic decide your answer for a question. Let's say if a passage says that there are 31 days in February. If the passage says that there are 31 days in February, you do not need to use your external knowledge. Your job is not to prove the information wrong given by the author. Your job is just to solve the questions on the basis of the information given to you by the author. So for you, the author or the passage has to be the God while solving the passage, right? You do not need to use your minds onto knowing whether the information given to you is correct or not. It has to be correct. Even if you feel the information given to you is factually wrong, you have to consider it correct and you have to solve the questions on the basis of that information. Clear? So you do not have to use any kind of external knowledge while solving a passage. You just have to stick to the information mentioned in the passage. Clear? Next point is, it is pretty much similar to the previous point, that you also do not have to assume things without a proper base. You do not have to use your external knowledge, and also you do not have to assume anything which is not given to you or which is not mentioned in the passage. Don't assume anything unless it is mentioned in the passage. Clear? The last point is, do not go on the length of the passage. See, this is very important because obviously it depends on exam to exam. If we talk about examinations such as CAT, GMAT, etc., you could be encountering some passages anywhere ranging between 300 to 700 words. But if you talk about any other examination, such as CMAT or any such examination, you could also be getting a short passage. So it depends on exam to exam, the length of the passage that you're getting. The point for you to understand here is, just do not go on the length of the passage. In fact, I would say the lengthier the passage is, the easier it gets for you to solve the question, because the more information you have, the more easy it becomes for you to solve that question correctly. Right? So lastly, I would just try to make you understand that do not at all assume the difficulty level of the passage on the basis of the length. Clear? It might be true that the questions of a lengthier passage are easier than the questions of a short passage. Clear? Any doubts till now? Any questions till now? I hope you have understood all these 10 strategies in order to crack a reading comprehension. Any questions, any doubts? Just shoot a yes in the chat box if things are pretty much understandable, so that we can move on to solve a short passage. But before solving that short passage, I'll make you understand the Bain strategy, which is very, very important. Please repeat the 7th strategy. Okay, Japneet. The 7th strategy basically says, it's a point which you need to remember, that reading the questions of the passage first. Whenever you're encountering a passage which has a lot of minute details in it, so let's say if you're encountering a descriptive or a fact-based passage, it is always advisable to go to the questions first, not reading them deeply in depth, just having a glance of the questions first, so that it becomes easy for you to know which particular detail you have to concentrate more on while reading the passage. Right? Clear, Japneet? I hope you don't have any further questions or any further doubts. So I'll go on, and I'll only in fact-based passage we can go to the... Yes, Rajneesh. In fact, only in the fact-based or only in the descriptive passage. In short, a passage wherein you find a lot of minute details. Because it's just not possible for someone to remember each and every minute detail. So it becomes easy if you go to the questions first. Right? Okay. Let's understand this Bain strategy. This Bain strategy is nothing but broad, alien, narrow, and extreme. This is an elimination strategy, which means this strategy is going to help you in order to eliminate the wrong options. Right? The strategy will help you in finding the wrong options. Right? Now, what do you mean by this broad, alien, narrow, and extreme? When we talk about, let's say, I'll make you understand the strategy with a simple example. Let's say the passage is on the topic increasing number of COVID cases in India, right? Let's say the topic is basically, the topic of the passage is basically revolving around increasing number of COVID cases in India. So this is the main context of the passage. Now, I am just trying to make you understand this Bain strategy with some of the options, some of the wrong options, which will be broad, alien, narrow, and extreme. So if in any case you encounter such broad, alien, narrow, or extreme options, you'll be straight away eliminating them. So a broad option, first of all, talking about the broad option, it will be an option which has a broader scope. Now, what do you mean by a broader scope? An option which has a broad scope will be an option which will be having some or the other additional information not relevant to the passage or irrelevant to the passage, or something which is not at all mentioned in the passage, right? But try to remember this, it will be an additional information. So let's say if the option has increasing number of COVID and malaria cases in India. If the option has increasing number of positive COVID and malaria cases in India, what kind of an option this is? It is a broad option because the scope of the option is really broad. It has some kind of details which are not at all relevant to the passage. See, the passage is just talking about COVID. The passage mentioned to you is just talking about the COVID cases. It is not at all mentioning about malaria, right? Now, because the option is also talking about malaria in addition to COVID, it becomes a broad option for us. Clear? So a broad option, in short, is an option which has some kind of additional details irrelevant to the passage or not mentioned at all in the passage. Clear? I hope now you guys are aware, or you guys have understood what a broad option means. And if you at all come across this broad option, you have to straight away eliminate it, considering it as a wrong option. Clear? Now, if we talk about a narrow option is completely the opposite or contradictory to the broader option, right? An option whose scope is very, very narrow. Now, if we try to understand this narrow scope, if you encounter an option wherein the option is missing out on some most important details of the passage, then that particular option becomes narrow to you, right? So let's say if the option has number of COVID cases in India, if the option has number of COVID cases in India, right? The scope of this option becomes narrow to you. Why? Because the main idea or the most important detail of this passage was increment. The passage is basically trying to make you understand how the numbers has increased, how the numbers of the COVID cases have increased. But this particular option is telling you nothing about the increment. It is just trying to mention COVID cases in India. And hence this option becomes a narrow option for you. Clear? And you will be eliminating this option as well. So I hope now you have understood the concept of a broad and a narrow option and how you will be eliminating them once you encounter them. Clear? Now let's talk about an alien option. Broad, alien, narrow, extreme. When we talk about an alien option, what do you mean by this word alien? What do you mean by this word alien? What is alien to you? Not familiar. Exactly. Correct, Karan. Not exactly long, Laksh. Yes, Neha, correct. Yes, okay, Jadu. Yes, Nikhil, correct. Out of context. Exactly, Rajneesh, correct. Yes, Mahima, not known to us. Yes, correct, Neha, something which is unknown to us. All of you are correct. Yes, exactly. Foreign, Japneet, correct. So when we talk about this word alien, something comes into our mind which is not exactly known to us, right? So something which is completely alien or which is completely unknown to us is considered to be an alien option to us. So let's say if you have an option saying decreasing, pardon my handwriting, guys, decreasing number of decreasing number of bird flu cases in India, right? Decreasing number of bird flu cases in India. Is this option anywhere getting connected to our passage? I mean, this is nowhere getting connected. This is completely unfamiliar to us, right? And hence we'll be eliminating this at the very first glance. Alien options are easiest to eliminate because you already know that this is something which is completely irrelevant to the passage or which is completely not given to you in the passage. And hence it becomes easier for you to eliminate the alien options, right? Lastly, talking about the extreme options. What do you mean by extreme options? Extreme options are options which are 2 or 3 steps ahead of the broader options, right? So broad options were the ones whose scope was really broad. Extreme options are the ones whose scope is extreme, right? So any such option which has words like all, everyone, must, none other than, right? All these words are extreme words to be included in an option. So let's say if your option is, by taking this particular example, if your option is increasing number of COVID cases in the whole world, right? This is an extreme option to you, right? Because the passage is only talking about India. The passage is limited to India, but the paper setter has brought in the whole world to you in the particular option, right? And hence this option becomes extreme to you. Any option which is trying to go extreme in the scope is kind of an extreme option to you, and you'll be eliminating it at the very first glance. Clear? Any doubts till now? Any doubts in the understanding of this Bain strategy? I hope it is clear to you all. I hope you are now you have already understood what these broad, narrow, alien, and extreme options mean. Even if you have understood 40 to 50% of it, it's amazing because we have just understood the strategy in a theoretical way. We'll understand it completely and thoroughly once we try to apply this strategy practically in the questions, right? Okay, let's move on to solve a very, very easy paragraph. I mean, I've taken this paragraph from an NCERT book. So the language or the level of this paragraph is going to be very, very easy. Don't consider or don't think that this kind of a paragraph is going to be asked in any kind of an entrance exam, right? But this is just for you to get a kickstart. This is just for you to gain some confidence before we move on to solve tougher passages, right? Let's start. I'll be showing you a paragraph of 6 to 7 lines. And you'll be reading that particular paragraph and you'll be going to solve the first question of that paragraph. Once you're done with the reading of the paragraph, just post in your answers of the first question of that paragraph, right? Come on, your time starts now. I hope the paragraph is and the question is clearly visible to you all. Once you're done with the reading of that this particular paragraph, just try to solve the first question. Come on. For those who have already done, you can just go through it again. I mean, it's you're just getting more confidence. Yes, Shabir, I know we've already done this, but I just want to. I mean, I'll tell this again and again. Some of the students or most of the students have repeated, have requested me to repeat sessions. I'm just here. I am repeating it. But any which ways, even if you've already done, my request is to again repeat it because, in a way, you're again practicing things, right? So for those who have not done, please read it and try to solve the first question. Yes, correct, Neha. Correct, Rishabh. Try to apply the Bain strategy that we just understood. Yes, correct, Mansoori. Correct, Gautam. Correct, Unnati. Very good, guys. Come on, keep going. Correct, Vivek. Yes, Sandhya. Correct, Laksh. Correct, Arjun. Correct, Namita. Correct, Venkateshwari. Correct, Ankit. Correct, Sneha. Correct. Oh, that means a lot, Shabir. Thank you so much. Thank you for the amazing compliment. I always get happy when I get compliments on my way of teaching because I think that's a treasure to me. That's my superpower. Correct, Karan. Correct, Sneha. Okay, so I think this passage was really very, very easy for you to understand. I think there's not much to understand in this. Let's move on towards the questions. The first question is, it is clear from the passage that dolphins. Now, I talked about, yes, correct, Rahul. I talked about the passage specific questions or the fact-based questions in my previous session. And I told you that whenever you encounter such questions, don't leave them. Whenever you encounter a passage specific or a fact based question, don't ignore it, don't leave it, because it is, I mean, these kind of questions are the easiest to deal with. Even if you have not understood even 20% of the passage, try to attempt such questions, because these are scoring, right? Because you'll be getting your answer directly from the passage. All you have to do is you have to find out that line wherein your answer lies, right? So if you encounter a question which says it is clear from the passage, just try to make this thing clear that you're going to get your answer directly from the paragraph. Now, let's try to eliminate the wrong options by going through all the options. The first option says, don't want to be with us as much as we want to be with them. Is the paragraph anywhere mentioning to you that the dolphins don't want to be with us as much as we want to be with them? Is anywhere the paragraph trying to make you understand that dolphins don't want to be with us? Nowhere in the paragraph we are getting a line which says that dolphins don't want to be with us. So what kind of an option this is? Out of the broad, alien, narrow and extreme options, what kind of an option? Option A is alien. Exactly, because I mean, no such thing is being given to us in the paragraph, right? Hence, we will be eliminating it, considering it as an alien option. Move on to the next option. It says the dolphins are proven to be less intelligent than once thought. Okay, are we encountering something about something suggested about intelligence in the paragraph? Yes, definitely. Something about intelligence is being told to us in the last fourth line. Right? Could any of these mammals be more intelligent than man? Right? But if you try to understand the paragraph or the information given to you in the paragraph is completely opposite to what is shown to you in the B option. B option points out or it talks about dolphins being less intelligent than man, whereas the paragraph questions to you of these mammals or of these dolphins being more intelligent than man, right? So first of all, the information given to you is completely opposite of what is given to you in the paragraph. Secondly, when we try to read this particular option, it tells you about something being proven to us in the passage. But the paragraph is not proving anything. The paragraph is in fact asking you something, that could any of these mammals be more intelligent than man? It is not proving anything. It is just asking you something, right? So again, because we have some information given to us in this option, which is trying to alter or which is trying to distort the information given to us in the paragraph, we'll be eliminating it. Clear? Distorting something means changing the information or altering the information. Fine. When we look at the option E, last option, it says the dolphins are capable of learning a language and communicating with humans. Is this option correct? And if it is not, why? I mean, what is the reason behind this option not being correct? What is the error in this particular option? Can you find out the error in the last option? Or is it completely true? Neha, you could consider option B as a narrow option, but more than considering it as a narrow option, it is kind of a wrong option to you, because the information given to you in that particular option is distorted. It is a wrong information, right? It is not a true option. It is completely a wrong option, option E, because if we concentrate on the passage in the paragraph, definitely something about communication is being given to us. But if we try to read the last fourth line, it says that it is much more probable that they communicate with each other. Communication with each other is being shown to us in the paragraph. But this particular last option is talking about communication with humans. Nothing about communication with humans is shown in the paragraph, right? Clear? So again, this type of option is trying to distort or change the information presented in the paragraph, and hence we will be eliminating it. I'll point out one thing, that it is not possible for you to apply Bain strategy in each and every single option or in each and every question. This is just a support for you, but this is not a short strategy for you to come up with the correct answer. Bain strategy is kind of a support. It is not, it is not a short thing which will lead you to the correct answer, right? So it could be applied in one or two options or in one or two questions, but don't stay, don't be in that kind of a mindset that you're definitely going to get a short answer with this Bain strategy, right? Okay, moving on to the rest of the options. Now we are left with the options C and D, right? Now, if you try to concentrate on the D option, what kind of an option this is? It is an extreme option, because it says that dolphins are the most powerful creatures that live in the oceans. Most powerful. I mean, nowhere in the whole paragraph is the author saying the dolphins are the most powerful creatures. They might be powerful, or they might be, or the author might be attributing dolphins to some of the other characteristics. But nowhere in the whole paragraph the author says that they are the most powerful creatures, and hence it becomes an extreme option for us. Clear? We'll be eliminating it. Now we are obviously just left with the C option, which says that dolphins have a reputation for being friendly to humans. The first line of the whole paragraph itself says that dolphins are regarded as the friendliest creatures, and how they're friendly to humans. There are certain examples which are given to you, and one of the examples says that examples or stories of them helping drowning sailors, right? It is clearly being told to you that history has suggested that these dolphins have tried to help drowning sailors in the sea, making them friendly towards humans, right? And hence we say that dolphins have a reputation for being friendly to humans, and we end up choosing C as the correct answer. Clear? Any doubts in this question? Any doubts over why we are eliminating the rest of the options except C? Are you having doubts in any of the rest of the options except C? Is it clear? Any doubts? Can we move on? Okay. Try to solve the second and the third question. First, try to solve the second question, and then the third one. Come on. Okay, Mansoori. Okay, Sneha. Correct. Yes, Namita, correct. Mansoori, Sneha, correct. Yes, Namita, Rajneesh, Neha, Nikhil, correct. Nikhil, reattempt. Namita, Rajneesh, Neha, correct. Sneha, correct. Yash, reattempt. Somil, correct. Japneet, correct. Mahima, correct. Okay, let's try to understand these rest of the two questions. They're very, very easy to understand. The author talks about superiority in the last few lines of the passage, I guess, in the last two lines. Now, what are the last two lines trying to make us understand? That on the contrary, okay, let's start with this last fourth line. The argument of the superiority starts from the last fourth line. Certainly, the most common argument in the favor of the man's superiority over them, that we can kill them more easily than they can kill us, is the least satisfactory. What do you mean by these last few lines? The author is trying to make us understand that just because of the reason that we can kill dolphins more easily, then they can kill us does not make us more superior to them. The fact that we are considered more superior to them just because of the reason that we can kill them more easily is the least satisfactory. Right? Whenever we say that a particular argument is least satisfactory, we should try to understand that the author is trying to make us understand the exactly opposite scenario of that. Right? So just because this argument is least satisfactory, we need to understand that the true statement is exactly opposite of this, which says that just because we can kill dolphins more easily does not mean we are superior to them. And that is what the question is trying to ask us, that the fact the writer of the passage thinks that we can kill dolphins more easily than they can kill us means that that we are not superior to them. Right? Clear? And moreover, I think this question was pretty easy for you to solve because this question relates to the concept of superiority. You could have easily chosen an option which was somewhere related to superiority, right? And there is only one single option, which is D, talking about superiority. There is no other option talking about superiority in this particular question, right? And hence we end up choosing option D as an answer. The fact that the writer of the passage thinks that we can kill dolphins more easily than they can kill us does not mean we are superior to them, does not mean we are superior to dolphins. Clear? Easy? Let's talk about the last question. One can infer from the reading that I already made you understand on how you're going to solve the questions based on inference. And inference is nothing but your own understanding. So whenever you're being asked a question on inference, you already know that you might not be getting the answer directly from the passage, right? Your answer might not lie directly in the passage. You have to think and you have to choose an option on the basis of your own understanding of what you understand by that particular paragraph or by that particular question, right? So let's have a look at all the options. Option A says dolphins are quite abundant in some areas of the world. What kind of an option this is? It is an extreme option, because if you look at the passage, the first line just talks about dolphins in the sea. It is not talking about the whole world. The passage is just limited to the sea, right? So the moment you read world in your option, just eliminate it, considering it as an extreme option, right? Second option, option B, says communication is the most fascinating aspect of the dolphins. Again, it results to you as an extreme option because the word most is used, and nowhere in the whole paragraph the author says or the author suggests communication to be the most important aspect of the dolphins, right? Again, we'll be eliminating B option as well. Talking about the C option, it says dolphins have skills that no other living creatures have. Again, we will relate this as an extreme option because the paragraph or the author nowhere says or nowhere points out that dolphins have such skills that no other living creatures have, right? This is too much of an extreme thing to be considered as an answer, right? Now talking about D and E options. The D option says that it is not usual for dolphins to communicate with each other. The paragraph or the author already tells us that it is very usual for dolphins to communicate with each other. It is very usual for the dolphins to communicate with each other. So they do communicate with each other without needing words. But option D points out exactly opposite to what the author tells us in the passage. Right? Option D says that it is not usual for the dolphins to communicate with each other, which is completely contradictory or opposite to what is given to us in the passage. And hence option D also gets eliminated, resulting option E as an answer. Option E says dolphins have some social traits that are similar to those of humans. What do you mean by traits? Traits are nothing but characteristics. So if option E says that dolphins have some of the social characteristics that are similar to those of humans, how does this option result as an answer? When we try to understand the second and the third and the fourth line of the passage, we say that dolphins look after the other dolphins when they are ill, they care for the pregnant mothers, and they protect the weakest in the community. as we do, right? So the characteristics of these dolphins are being compared to the characteristics of the humans. Just like we care for our friends or for our well-wishers, or just all the characteristics that are present in us as the humans are also being present in the dolphins. And hence the author is trying to compare all those characteristics, all those are characteristics with the dolphins as well. And hence we end up choosing E as an answer, which says that dolphins have some social characteristics which are similar to those of humans. Clear? Any doubts in any of the three questions or in the understanding of the paragraph that we have had till now? Any doubts till now? If you don't have any doubts, any questions, please post a yes so that we can move ahead. Yes, Satyaki, please say. Please tell me the doubt. I'm waiting for your doubt. Mahima is saying dolphins can communicate effectively. Yes, Mahima. I mean, it is already shown to you in the passage that it is usual for the dolphins to communicate with each other. So why can't be? Okay. Now, the point that I earlier also mentioned, that if the option has extreme words such as most, all, everyone, everywhere, or none other than, then that particular option becomes an extreme option to you, right? The paragraph definitely points out that communication is one of the fascinating aspects, or is a fascinating aspect of a dolphin. But nowhere in the passage is given to you that communication is the most fascinating aspect of the dolphins. Getting it, Mahima? And that is why we are eliminating it, just because of the word most. We are considering it as an extreme option. If the author himself or herself had mentioned communication to be the most fascinating aspect, then we could have definitely considered this as a correct answer. But the author nowhere mentions most, right? Okay, Satyaki has a doubt in the second last question. Satyaki, the question asks you whether the fact that the writer of the passage thinks that we can kill dolphins more easily than they can kill us mentions what? Now, if the paragraph says that just because we can kill dolphins more easily than they can kill us makes us superior to them, is the least satisfactory, then we have to understand that just because we can kill dolphins more easily than they can kill us does not make us superior to them. Right, and that is what is being given to you in the D option, that the fact of the fact that the writer of the passage thinks that we can kill dolphins more easily than they can kill us does not make us more superior to them. That is what is being given to you in the D option. Getting it, Satyaki? I hope you have understood this. I mean, you can also let me know the point wherein you're not understanding things. I hope you have understood this particular question now. Any doubts? Any doubts in any of the questions now? Okay. Now I'll be showing you a passage which has probably 300 to 350 or 400 words, and it might become difficult for you to understand all the words of the passage at some point of time, but don't panic or don't get stuck in those words. Your job is to get an overall idea of the passage, nothing else. You should just be in a situation to at least understand the questions of the passage, right? So I'm going to show you a passage now, and all you have to do is you have to read it. This particular passage is based on science. You have to read it, and you have to just let me know in the chat box once you're done reading the passage. We'll be understanding the passage in detail, and then we'll be moving on to the questions. Clear? Are you guys ready to read the passage now? Are you guys ready? Can I show you the passage? Okay. Is the passage clearly visible on the screen? You guys have 3 minutes, only 3 minutes to go through this passage, because this is the ideal time that anyone would be getting in order to read a passage in any kind of an entrance exam, right? So your time starts now. You have time till 10:01. Read this and then do let me know in the comment section. Come on. Okay, Venkateshwari. Okay, Arjun. Let me know when you're done reading the passage. Come on, as such you're left with last few seconds. Okay, Sandhya. Okay, Sneha. Okay, Ibrahim. Okay. Let's start with this. How was the passage? How was the difficulty level of the passage? Was it easy, moderate, difficult? How was it? It was moderate. Okay, Sneha. It was moderate. Okay, Venkateshwari. It was difficult. Okay, Sneha. Okay, there are two Snehas, right? So don't get confused. Okay, Arjun. Okay, Ibrahim. Okay, Rohan. Okay, Vivek. So most of you are saying that it was moderate. Okay. Let's first understand the passage and then we'll be moving on towards the questions. The first paragraph of the passage says, the only worst thing being lied to is not knowing that you're being lied to. This is just a general philosophical line which says that obviously it's bad whenever you're being lied to, but it's worst when you don't even know that someone is lying to you. Right. So, I mean, this is not really relevant as far as the topic of the passage is concerned, but it is just a start to the passage with a short philosophy. Right. The next line says, it's true that plastic pollution is a huge problem of planetary proportions, and it's true we could all do more to reduce our plastic footprint. The lie is that the blame for the plastic problem is wasteful consumers and that changing our individual habits are going to fix it. It is this is the most important line of the whole passage, which basically tries to point out the blame which is being put on the consumers for this plastic problem. What the author says is that all the consumers who are being blamed for this plastic problem, he is basically considering this whole blame as a lie. He's trying to point out that consumers are not at all responsible for the plastic problem, and that if you try to convince the consumers to change their individual habits, this problem is not going to get fixed. Right, because consumers are not at all responsible for this plastic problem, and even if they try to change their individual habits, this problem is not going to get fixed. So if the author is not blaming the consumers, who else is the author blaming? We'll know that after reading the rest of the passage. By reading the first paragraph, all you have to know is that the author is trying to show that the blame being put on consumers for this plastic problem is a complete lie, and that the consumers are not at all responsible for this plastic problem. Someone else is, right? Now, who that someone is, we'll definitely know by reading the rest of the passage. The second paragraph says, recycling plastic is to saving the earth what hammering a nail is to halting a falling skyscraper. What do you mean by skyscraper? Skyscraper is basically those tall story buildings, right? Those tall buildings. Now, the author is basically trying to point out or he's trying to give you a phrase by comparing the problem of recycling plastic with this problem of falling skyscraper. Right? What the author says is, it's good when you're trying to recycle the plastic, but you need to try and find out the root of the problem. Even if you're trying to recycle the plastic, you first need to understand that why is that plastic being produced in the first place? The production of the plastic is the root of the problem. And he's trying to compare this problem with the problem of the falling skyscraper by trying to make you understand that it's definitely good when you're trying to stop the building from a fall. Right? It's good when you're trying to stop a falling building. But you need to understand that why is that building falling in the first place? You need to find out the root of the problem. And hence, the author goes on saying that you struggle to find a place to do it and feel pleased when you succeed. You definitely feel a lot pleased when you succeed in recycling plastic, but your effort is wholly inadequate and distracts from the real problem. Right? It distracts you from the real problem, because the real problem is not how you recycle the plastic. The real problem is the production of the plastic itself. Right? The real problem is that single-use plastic, the very idea of producing the plastic items like the grocery bags, which we use for an average of 12 minutes but can stay in the environment for half a millennium, is an incredibly reckless abuse of technology. Encouraging individuals to recycle more will never solve the problem of a massive production of single-use plastic that should have been avoided in the first place. So what the author is trying to point out here is, definitely it's amazing when you try your best to recycle plastic, but that's not the end solution. You need to understand, or you need to figure out why this huge amount of plastic, which is staying in the environment for probably half a millennium, why this plastic is being produced in the first place. This should not at all be produced. Right? So in short, in these two paragraphs, the author tries to point out that we need to find out or figure out the real root or the cause of the problem instead of finding an alternative solution to the problem. Right? Clear? Any doubts or any questions till now in the understanding of these two paragraphs? Okay, let's move on. When we talk about this third paragraph, as an ecologist and evolutionary biologist, I have had a disturbing window into the accumulating literature on the hazards of plastic pollution. Scientists have long recognized that plastics biodegrade slowly. They pose multiple threats to wildlife. So if we concentrate on this third paragraph, it is basically trying to point out all the negative impacts of plastic on this wildlife or on people. Right? So you just need to understand that if you at all get a question being asked on negative impacts of plastic problem, all you have to do is you just have to come to this third paragraph and read this in detail. Right? Now talking about the fourth paragraph, this fourth paragraph is the most important paragraph of this whole passage. So try to concentrate. The fourth paragraph says, beginning in the 1950s, big beverage companies like Coca-Cola and Busk, along with Philip Morris and others, formed an NGO called Keep America Beautiful. So these companies such as Coca-Cola and others formed a non-profit organization which was called Keep America Beautiful, or we can say which is called Keep America Beautiful. Its mission is to educate and encourage environmental stewardship. Stewardship means awareness. So the mission of this NGO was to create environmental awareness among people. At face value, these efforts seem benevolent. What do you mean by these face efforts? What do you mean by the face value? Face value is something which appears from outside. So they say that the mission or the idea of this NGO, which is appearing from outside, seems to be good. Benevolent means good, right? We understand this word from the root word technique, bene, right? Bene means good in Latin or Greek language. And hence it says that from outside, the mission of this organization seems good. But they obscure the real problem, right? They try to hide the real problem. Obscure means to hide, which is, what is the problem that they're trying to hide? The role that corporate polluters play in the plastic problem. And these corporate polluters are none other than the companies such as Coca-Cola and others. Right? So what they do is, when we see their so-called ads displaying that we support the environment, or we use plastic, we use recyclable plastic, what they're doing is they're trying to create an impression in the consumers' minds that these companies are doing amazing, and whereas in cases where environment is concerned, or they are really protective towards the environment, but in a way they're basically themselves trying to use plastic. They definitely market themselves considering that they use recyclable plastic. But the question is, why are they even using plastic in the first place? So they're trying to create a goodwill in front of people by marketing their companies as using recyclable plastic, but they themselves are the polluters. They themselves are the culprits who are using plastic in the first place. Right? So what the author points out is these companies are themselves the polluters in the first place, and they should not be marketing themselves as companies who protect or conserve the environment. Right? This clever misdirection has led the journalist, just a minute. This Clever misdirection has led journalist and author Rogers to describe Keep America Beautiful as the first corporate greenwashing front. What do you mean by a greenwashing front? The term greenwashing front is being given to companies who try to appear something else and who are actually something else in their existence, right? So companies who are trying to divert the attention of the public from a truth to a false presentation is something which is known as a greenwashing front. So this author Rogers described this organization Keep America Beautiful as a greenwashing front because they tried to shift the public focus to consumer recycling behavior rather than blaming the producers who are producing plastic. So what they did is they tried to shift the attention, or they tried to shift the blame from producers to the consumers, to the consumer behavior, right? And that is why the author is saying that this Keep America Beautiful organization is nothing but a greenwashing front. The greatest success of Keep America Beautiful has been to shift the onus of environmental responsibility onto the public while simultaneously becoming a trusted name in the environmental movement. That's what this organization did, right? It tried to pollute the environment by creating a goodwill, showing people that it is trying to use, or they're trying to use recyclable plastic, but they themselves are trying to hide the real problem and showing that they themselves are the real polluters, right? Last paragraph says, so what can we do to make responsible use of plastic a reality? Now, the question arises is, what can we actually do to make responsible use of plastic a reality? First of all, we need to reject the lie. What is the lie? The lie that we are responsible for the plastic problem. We are not at all responsible for the plastic problem. The producers are responsible for the plastic problem. Right? So first of all, we have to reject the lie that we are being blamed by for this plastic problem. Litter bugs are not responsible for the global ecological disaster of plastic. What are litter bugs? Litter bugs are basically the small wrappers, or the kind of small particles that we keep on throwing on roads, which we should not do, obviously. But the paragraph or the author says that litter bugs are not responsible, right? Humans can only function to the best of their abilities given time, mental bandwidth, and systemic constraints. Our huge problem with the plastic is the result of a permissive legal framework that has allowed the uncontrolled rise of plastic pollution. Despite clear evidence of the harm it causes to the local communities and the world's oceans, recycling is also too hard in most parts of the United States and lacks the proper incentives to make it work well. So the author in the end says that we firstly need to reject the lie that we ourselves are responsible. We are not responsible. He is basically blaming the legal framework of the country, which is responsible to give permission to producers in order to produce a lot of plastic. So the author says that we are not responsible, rather he's blaming the legal framework which gives permission to the producers to produce huge amount of plastic. Clear? So in the whole passage, the author is basically trying to point out that we ourselves are not responsible, and that the legal framework of our country, or the production of the plastic which is happening in our country, is responsible for the plastic problem. Clear? Any doubts in the understanding of this passage? I think you would have understood at least 70 to 80% of the passage by now. Any doubts, any questions in the understanding of this passage? Are you at least in a capacity or in a situation to attempt the questions of this passage? A yes in the chat box if you are ready to attempt the questions. Just a yes in the chat box from all of you, please. Okay, great. Great. Let's start with the first question. Which of the following interventions would the author most strongly support? So you need to choose an option which, according to you, is most supportive by the author. First of all, take a screenshot of this passage or take a picture of this passage so that it becomes easy for you to attempt the questions. Take a screenshot of this passage. Come on. Now try to attempt the first question. Come on. Which of the following interventions would the author most strongly support? Yes, correct Mahima, correct Param, correct Namita. Correct, Rajneesh. Correct, Saurav. Correct, Mayank. Karan, reattempt. Nikhil, reattempt. Sneha, correct. Ibrahim, correct. Arjun, correct. Japneet, reattempt. Amit, reattempt. Venkateshwari, correct. Okay, let's have a quick look at this question. We need to choose an option which is most supportive by the author, right? Now, having a look at the first option, it says recycling all plastic debris in the seabed. First of all, there is nowhere in the whole passage mentioned to you that the author wants all plastic debris to be recycled in the seabed. So it is kind of an alien option to us. Hence, we'll be eliminating this, right? Talking about the B option, it says the author wants or the author supports all consumers to change their plastic consumption habits. This is in fact the complete opposite to what is given to you in the passage. The author says that consumers are not at all responsible for the plastic problem, and hence even if they try to change their individual habits, it won't be of any use because they are not at all responsible. So this is completely opposite or contradictory to what is given to you in the passage, and hence again we'll be eliminating this. Now, talking about the C and the D option, option C talks about a complete ban being put on all single use of plastic bags. The author definitely tries to point out or tries to blame the production of the plastic, right? But he or she or the author nowhere in the whole passage suggests a complete ban to be put on the single-use plastic bags, right? The author is nowhere suggesting a complete ban in the passage. He definitely blames the production of the plastic. He definitely tells us that the production of the plastic is to be avoided in the first place, but he nowhere gives a suggestion to put a complete ban on it. Clear? So it is something which is not relevant to the passage being presented to us, and hence we will be eliminating this. If you are suggesting a ban, then you're using an external assumption or external knowledge to this question, because the author is not suggesting something like this, right? Option D tells you that author is supporting passing regulations targeted at producers that generate plastic products. Now, this is something which author can definitely support because the author is blaming the legal permissive framework in the last paragraph. Because the author is blaming the legal permissive framework, the author will definitely support the regulations being passed which are targeted at the producers rather than targeting the consumers, right? So because the author is blaming the legal framework, or because the author is blaming the regulations which the legal framework puts on at the consumers, he could definitely more strongly support the regulations being passed targeted on the producers. Clear? Any doubts in this particular question? Any doubts or any questions? Any queries regarding this question number 1? Satyaki, I hope it is clear now. Sneha, I hope it is clear. Japneet, Amit, for those who answered C, I hope it is clear now why option C is not the correct answer. Because it is something which is not at all suggested by the author. Clear? All of you who chose C as an answer, I hope it is clear now why option D is the correct answer. Okay. Let's move on to question number 2. Come on. The author, this is a completely fact-based question, so it should be really easy for you to answer. Just go back to the third paragraph, which lists all the negative impacts of the plastic problem, and then choose the correct answer. Just remember the question says except. So you need to choose an option which is not true or which is not given in the paragraph of the passage. Neha correct, Namita correct, Rajneesh reattempt, Sandhya correct, Mayank correct, Somil reattempt, Rajneesh correct, Mahima correct, Venkateshwari correct, Sneha correct, Gaurang correct, Sneha correct. Okay, I'll just go quickly over this because it's a very, very easy question to be asked. The author lists all of the following as negative effects. When we talk about paragraph 3, it lists some of the negative impacts, such as the biodegradation. It definitely talks about the plastic biodegrading slowly. You can have a look over here, which says that plastics biodegrade slowly, right? There are also some other negative consequences being given to you, such as absorption of toxic chemicals in water, and also a negative consequence wherein we are ingesting the plastic in seafood. When we try to consume the seafood, we also try to consume the plastic, because it is the sea animals who are indirectly consuming plastic in this present in the sea, right? Now let's move on to question number 2. The first option talks about degradation, which is clearly shown to you in the paragraph, and hence we'll be eliminating the option A, because we need to choose an option which is not given to you in the passage, right? We have this word except in the question. So as a result of this, we need to choose an option which is untrue according to the passage. We will be eliminating option A because it is something which is true according to the passage. Option B talks about digestive system. The paragraph already talked about we ingesting the plastic while consuming seafood. So again, it is something which relates to the digestive system, and hence we will be eliminating this option as an answer. Option C talks about poisonous chemicals released in the water. Again, the paragraph kind of talked about toxic chemicals in the water. So again, it is something which is present in the paragraph, and hence we'll be eliminating it. Option B talks about air pollution. Is anywhere in the passage air pollution being talked about? Is the author talking about air pollution anywhere in the whole passage? No. So we will end up choosing B option as an answer, because it is something which is not at all being talked about in the passage. Clear? I hope it was easy to attempt. I hope it was easy to understand. Any doubts in this question? People who chose B as an answer, I hope it is, people who chose D as an answer, I hope it is clear now. Amit, is it clear? Somil, is it clear? Rajneesh, any doubts in this question? Okay, let's move on to the last question. We'll be attempting the rest of the questions of this passage in the next session, because we are not left with much of the time. So try to attempt this question number 3, the last question for today's session. Come on. Or else I'll give it to you in homework. I'll share this PPT in the email. Yes, Neha, correct. You just have to find out what kind of lie the author is talking about in the first paragraph. Yes, till now everyone is correct. Everyone is correct. Yes. Come on, come on. Sneha, Mayank, Sandhya, Neha, Rohan, Param, Events, whatever your name is, Japneet, Venkateshwari, Venkateshwari, correct. All of these are correct. Arjun reattempt, Mohammed reattempt, Amit reattempt, Rajneesh correct, Mahima correct, Karan correct, Sneha correct, Saurav, Somil correct. Okay, you want to see the passage again? Yes, Satyaki, you can see the passage, and you can also take the picture of the passage in case if you want to. Okay. Let's go back to the question. When we look at the first paragraph clearly says that the lie was that consumers are responsible for the plastic problem. If you look at the third line of the passage, it says the lie is that. What is the lie? The lie is that the blame for the plastic problem is wasteful consumers. So the lie is the blame being put on the consumers for the plastic problem. I already told you that this first line is nothing but just a philosophy to have a kickstart to the passage. It is not something which is giving a literal meaning to the passage. So for those who chose option C as an answer, it was nothing but just a small philosophy. It was not an answer to the question. Right? If you want to answer the question, or if you want to know the lie which is being referred to, it is nothing but given to you in the third line of the paragraph. It says the lie is that blame for the plastic problem is being put on consumers, right? So when we try to solve the third question, option C is talking just about the philosophy. It is not the correct answer. You need to find out the lie, and the lie was the blame being put on the consumers, right? So it was really easy to attempt. The lie was nothing but the blame being put on the consumers for the problem of plastic. Hence, we'll be choosing A as an answer. When we talk about option B and option D, they are nowhere getting connected to the lie. They could definitely be true according to the passage, but they're not true according to the question being asked to us. The question merely asks you about the lie being referred to. And the lie is referred to nothing but the consumers, but it is basically being referred to the blame being put on consumers, right? And B and D are not at all talking about the blame being put on consumers, giving us A as the correct answer.